We both be laughing like Marge Simpson's sisters. Welcome back to the Godfo Universe podcast. It's Dan and
Josh.
Yeah. So
in the same room for a change.
Yeah, I decided to move in with Josh. My wife kicked me out. People will believe that.
Watch mine kick me out.
Yeah. Next one's gonna be like this, like a cardboard box somewhere, or with Hans.
Alright, so we've been having some pretty cool conversations lately, like some kind of deep stuff. What are we talking about today?
Simulacra and simulacrum.
Simulacrums.
I'm gonna compare it with all the was it Spider-Man Far From Home?
Yeah.
Mysterio. As a villain theme, I want to go into like a series of villain tropes and themes.
Okay,
soon
cool.
After this one, and stuff that be happening in the real world, because
fair enough.
You be seeing stuff that be happening in the real world.
You don't think it'd be that way, but it
do.
But it do be.
You
that
think it'd
way.
be that way?
It do go down.
It do go down. I might throw a link to that one.
It do go down though.
Simulacra and simulation, without getting into like the pretentiousness behind it, because everybody understands this concept, whether you, like, people know it or not. Just, I mean, you know it. Like 90% of academia is just like lexicon and what's the word I'm looking for, like vocabulary.
Yeah, it's
basically.
Yeah.
Once you know that, it's all concepts pretty much, unless it's like advanced physics.
Yeah.
Like math. But anyway, it's a philosophy kind of idea, a philosophical idea of different layers of simulation, going from stage one, which is a reflection of like a profound reality, like something that could actually be believed, which is a faithful copy, to basically a thing that exists within. It only serves as a copy of other copies type of reality.
I got you. All right.
So,
and I know we'll get deeper into it than that, but like surface level, that makes sense.
Well, the basic example a lot of people give, and I forgot who created this one. It might be someone controversial, so I'll probably get hated for it. But he gave the idea of a strawberry.
A strawberry.
a strawberry that tastes like strawberries. We'll say a schnozberry.
Schnozberries.
The idea of a schnozberry is, to say there's a farmer who grows them, and like you can eat it. And that's a schnozberry.
Well, schnozberry fields forever.
Somebody comes up and is like, "Hey, we want to put your schnozberries in our cereal." So now you're getting like okay, it's still the schnozberry, but now it's got like part of cereal and sugar and milk, right? Well, then it comes along and they're like, well, we want to like dehydrate them and so on and so forth, and so eventually you get to, well, we're going to create a candy of schnozberry candy.
That tastes like schnozberry.
But it's not even made from that anymore.
Yeah,
we just throw your name on it. So now, like a generation down, there's kids that eat schnozberry candy that think that's what a schnozberry is, and that's what it tastes like.
I got you.
So that's how you go from like a replica all the way.
Yeah, and like another good example is possibly even a better example than schnozberries, if that's possible. James O'Barr, that did the Crow, the original comic book version of the Crow, he talked about learning to draw from.
Oh, I've heard you say that.
Yeah, like he learned to draw from anatomy books and like actually studying human form, because he's like, if you learn to draw from looking at comic books, well, comic books are already exaggerated anatomy, so then you're gonna further exaggerate it. So by the time you're drawing stuff, it's a copy of a copy, and it's not anything that even remotely looks real. So I kind of get what you're going through. Like eventually, it's not even the same thing anymore.
That's a bet, because I've heard guys use the strawberry analogy a lot. And like I said, I think someone recently made it up. But they usually take like 10 minutes to go through that story, and you just did it in like 10 seconds.
Efficiency. Thy name is Josh.
Is that why you draw so fast?
That's why my bowels work so fast.
You got the anatomy book. Mom, it's only for the pictures. I swear.
2 of them right there.
Don't you keep Grey's Anatomy?
Grey's Anatomy, and I have an anatomy for artists right there.
Is that not to go off on a tangent, but is that like a legit medical book, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Is it still up to date, or is it from like 1900?
That's an updated version.
Are they
but
still
like,
measuring skulls back then?
That's an updated version, but I mean, it's still essentially the same.
I'm going to put a picture of Calvin Candy. With his copy of Grey's Anatomy.
It's still like a great resource for like bone structure, muscle structure, and all that stuff.
That's
just
cool.
getting things to connect the way they're supposed to. And
well, I mean, going with that, we do make comics. We make all kinds of art. It do go down. Like, I think that is a problem with all. I mean, I know that I love like Dave McKean, and like I love a lot of those '90s dudes, like late '90s, that made that huge expressionist kind of style of what could a comic be, you know.
Well, I mean, think about Jack Kirby back in the day, like when he first came on the scene. Nothing looked like that.
Yeah,
and it was wild. But then now, it's hard. It's hard to find something original that you can't say, well, this is super derivative of 1,000 other things that were super derivative of something before them.
A lot of it. What bothers me is a lot of comics just look like corporate art now. They look like they were made in like a CalArt studio or for a PDF presentation or PowerPoint presentation. It just looks super corporatized, and I think a lot of that is the digital aspect.
Well, and a lot of it is less stylized, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of it's
you don't get individual style. You don't get
yeah.
those rock star artists out there that just do something that looks. I mean, Todd McFarlane, when you first saw him, like when he first started with Marvel with Spider-Man stuff, nothing else looked like that.
Everything he did, whether you liked it or not, was his. Like,
yeah, I mean, it was
like
so clearly.
Even like the Batman cape, which there's a lot of people that hate Todd McFarlane's Batman, but I mean, you knew it when you saw it.
Yeah,
you knew it was his, and he made the cape living and huge and massive and kind of folding all within itself.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it was just Spawn's cape before Spawn.
Right.
And then, of course, Spider-Man, there's no getting around that he redefined Spider-Man's movement and style and look. I mean, he made Spider-Man look cool probably for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
He didn't move like a human.
Yeah, he contoured the contortionist side of it, and he redefined the way the webs were drawn to, and all that stuff. And I guess we don't get a lot of that now. We just get the cookie cutter stuff, and so much of it's bland and flat. And
well, a lot of it, flat. I've expressed this to you before. A lot of it, especially the colors. Like, I'm not an artist by any means, just to let them know, which they should know. but everything looks like it's made at sunset.
Yeah,
it's really hard. That's the only way I can describe it. It's really weird digital colors.
Yeah,
and I don't know the proper term for it. It's like no one knows how shading works anymore.
Or it's definitely, you get a lot of stuff that has, and we've talked about it so much.
Yeah.
But like, you got multiple like light sources that make no sense, but there's no cast shadows and there's no gradation. It's just flat, and it doesn't really go anywhere for it.
It seems a lot of people don't know how darkness works. If that's the way I could put it. They don't know how shadow works.
Yeah.
And it just really shows. But there's different styles, and not to go too deep down a rabbit hole, but I think manga is kind of a style that is self-replicating, because people learn to draw manga really well by drawing manga, because it's not identical to human. But I mean, if you have Akira sitting right there, that's completely different. I mean, Akira is very much a technical,
and there again, Otomo has a very distinct style, even
especially with his head and his eyes, his
the way he drew faces and things like that.
Well, he didn't draw it like how manga's drawn now. Big eyes.
Yeah, it was a more realistic.
Small noses. Yeah.
And his people, like, you can tell. If you ever look, did you watch Steam Boy?
No.
All right, if you watch Steam Boy, like, there are definitely things. Steam Boy. There are definitely things in Steam Boy that, like, aesthetically you look at and say, oh, that looks very like Akira, but it's set in England, and the people do not look like the people in Akira, because he wants them to look like they're not Japanese, so they look European, and it's kind of cool seeing, even if it's subtle differences, the eyes, the mouth, the way he draws them.
Otomo did that, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was his.
Confused.
that was another film that he did.
And we've gone over this before, but didn't a lot of that kind of manga, like 80s, didn't that come from like a lot of 60s and 70s French comic stuff?
Yeah, like Mobius's
Yeah.
background. Yeah, there's a lot of that came, was born out of that hyper realistic.
Wasn't Elric some of that too?
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong. Like some of the first comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Jordanowski and all those,
those guys elevate. I mean, that's a whole thing that you could do a deep dive on. Those dudes that elevated comics way before even American comics did.
Yeah, Metal Hurlant, or over here in English speaking countries, it's heavy metal, but Metal Hurlant.
Yeah,
they get associated so much with like the erotica side of it because they were mature. That was a big
Nothing
selling
wrong with that,
point.
yeah.
But that was
imagine that.
I mean, imagine the French liking nudity.
Wait, are you telling me that comics were sold by putting cheesecake on the covers?
But like when you look at what made those books sell, it was not just the TNA stuff. It was, you looked inside and saw fully painted, like incredible artwork and pushing the limits on mature storytelling for the time period and all. But those artists were doing stuff on a huge scale that, like, when you looked at that next to the most recent issue of Fantastic Four, like, there was no comparison on the art.
Well, and didn't they print their books a little bit bigger?
Mm-hmm, they were magazine sized.
Yeah, which just makes it so much cooler. The only one I have of that is the original run of Grendel.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. It's like this big.
And see, when Metal Hurlant started coming over here as heavy metal and the movie came out and all that stuff, that was around the same time that Marvel started releasing what they had a magazine called Epic, which was full size, and it was black and white and painted art and stuff. It was more detailed, more mature.
Yeah.
They started doing like the Savage Sword of Conan magazines and things like that were more mature. And, so Marvel kind of copied that, in the 70s, 60s, and 70s because they realized, oh, wow, there's a whole market there that, that we can make bank off of.
Well, to tie it all together, there's a difference between inspiration and simulation.
Right.
So something where you studied art.
Mm-hmm.
And I studied music. The idea behind, you don't have to study something classically to understand it or do it clearly.
Right.
But you do need a foundation of sorts of how something is and how something works before you start complete emulation of a style.
Right.
And some of the great artists that did that were like Prince and Michael Jackson, that would literally change with the times, but you always knew it was them.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like if a new type of keyboard came out or synthesizer. When Prince used it, it sounded like Prince.
Yeah.
It didn't sound like Def Leppard. It didn't sound like I don't know who else I'm looking for, like Foreigner or something.
Well, and then the others, or Kiss.
Yeah.
Who just like, oh, we'll make a grunge album and we'll make we'll make hair metal. Let's make a disco album. And I think that's the thing, is that there's a difference between just aping something and synthesizing it and making it something new.
Yeah.
And that's
art. That's art.
Yeah, that's actual art, where you take these influences in, you process them, you digest them, and you create something out of the pieces that's unique to itself. But then you have the carbon copies of everything that that you see, and it's, you see it with movies. Like, a movie hits and is really popular, where you can expect there's going to be at least 5, 6, 7 more movies over the next few years that are exactly the same thing.
When I saw the trailer for Skinamarink, I told John Seal, a friend of ours, I was like, the worst part of that movie will be the bands for the next 5 years who rip off that aesthetic.
Yeah. And that's the thing that you get, is like, all right, Transformers comes out, the first Transformers, and it's pretty good. All right, well, now not only do we have to have at least 7 of these Transformers sequels, but we also have to have like 5 other movies that look like and try to be Transformers. And then below that is the companies like Asylum that put out the Transmorphers on straight to DVD. that like is just an even more weakened.
It becomes mirrors of mirrors of mirrors.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about, like I've talked about it with people about like from a moral standpoint and stuff, but like when you think about a Xerox machine, when you make your first copy, it looks pretty much exactly like the original, but if you make copies of copies of copies of copies, you lose information.
Fight Club reference.
Yeah, you lose information.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that's what, eventually it cheapens, it becomes something that's way less than what it was.
Well, and not to take it from art, but on a grander scale, I mean, that's what reality is becoming. That's a weird statement, but there's a hyper reality overlaid over reality.
The metaverse?
Yeah, I've got that pulled up right here. I mean, that's exactly what the metaverse is. It's a hyper reality superimposed over reality that will eventually have no reference to reality. That's the ultimate end goal. Is to get it so that no one is in reality. They're in this, and then you can create reality, because you can't change physical reality, but so much, but you can change people's perception of it to a false reality. And we address that in our stuff, because, and it's like not even that it's interesting. It's just that's reality. That's
this is where we're at, and we know that if you're telling a story set in the near future, that stuff's just going to get worse. And more invasive. So,
well, I was trying to think what leads to that. I think it's just like not wanting to deal with reality itself.
Wally was correct.
Yeah. That's a great idea. And not just about was it climate change and trash pollution and all that, but just I mean, there's a reason like pharmaceutical companies are booming. There's a reason that VR, like this kind of stuff, I think it's because when you lack like a good foundation of an idea of reality, you just kind of disperse into hyper reality.
Well, and then you've also got, and not just in like science fiction and fantasy and things like that, in genres, but like you've got actual scientific, supposedly people in the science community that legitimately have conversations about whether we live in a simulated reality or not.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
That's not like it's not like, oh, what if the Matrix really is real? There's genuinely scientific, scholarly discussion about whether we live in a simulated reality.
Yeah, and it's like, well, simulation theory is just intelligent design with extra steps. I mean, that's literally what it is. We live in a reality that was created, but it can't be God. It had to just be this other thing that was also created that created us, the Prometheus idea, or whatever. Or I guess 2001 kind of did that.
Yeah.
What a terrible, I don't know. It seems that this kind of idea and all of that and sci-fi like that to just serve to degrade humanity.
Yeah, you were the offspring of an obelisk.
Yeah,
you came from
a seed big from something else.
Dark block.
Well, and not to praise it again, because we always be praising it, but Evangelion did that so well. Because it still kept the big religious symbology, and it still kept the huge vastness, and but it stayed human focused. Mm-hmm. It didn't make it seem like the human was this big, because everything the characters did mattered.
Right.
It was an inverse of that. It wasn't
true.
It wasn't a bringing humanity down. It was, even through all that, it was raising them up to the point that they altered reality by the end of it.
Yeah.
Because I've only seen that movie once, the last one.
Yeah, I haven't watched it again. It was heavy. Yeah. I want to watch it again.
Well, Gurren Lagann did that.
Yeah.
You're in a universe that is cold and uncaring, but there's this idea of the spiral of human potential that can change it. And make it. And you can go too much into that. You can go into, was it Gnosticism and alchemy, which I was going to do for another podcast. That hubris can be a problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the manga version of Akira kind of does that too. They create their own, new reality.
Well, I'll tell you what, and a lot of that was like, we talked about the political aspect of Japan forging its own destiny instead of living beaten and subservient basically to the United States and the United Nations.
I mean, that's
because 40 years before they were literally one of the greatest empires to ever exist, or at least one of the most imposing ones to ever exist.
yeah. We took care of that, though, didn't we?
We made that joke the other day. They just didn't have enough desks to hide under. Because if anybody that's super young doesn't get that joke, like the greatest or not the greatest generation, the baby boomers used to hide. They were trained to hide under a desk, and then
during the Cold War.
Yeah, nuclear fallout. Like, let's hide under the desk. That'll protect us. That's a Nagasaki didn't have.
They didn't have enough desks.
That's enough desks to hide under. Oh, jeez. But this all ties in with so here's some stuff like AI and deep fakes and even
I want to get into all the AI because that's such a big thing right now, especially in the comic world.
Yeah,
these AI art programs that just develop things, but what they do is literally just stealing things from other artists and repurposing them into garbage.
And I've seen
with 9 fingers and an eye that doesn't point the right direction. Like all of it, you can always tell it's AI art because, like, when you at first glance, you're like, "Oh, that looks really cool," and then the closer you look, you're like, "Why are there 2 fingers on that person's elbow?"
Why does it look like the Elephant Man made out with Steve Buscemi?
Man, Steve Buscemi looks like the Elephant Man made out with Steve Buscemi.
That poor guy. He made it work though, man.
His French bulldog eyes.
Like Paul Giamatti. I've heard the explanation of AI where it's like it doesn't steal, it like looks at it, incorporates it, and breaks it down, and then uses it as a reference. It's like, man, it's a computer. It can only do what it has in it.
Yeah.
It can't create anything new. You think it is, but it's not. It's processing ones and zeros all the way down.
It's soulless, and I can understand. Like, I can see using it as a tool. Mm-hmm. And like to get a
foundation,
to start, just to okay, that's an interesting way I could take it and work from there.
Yeah,
but
that's how every tool should be.
Yeah, it's service and just inspiration. A tool. But like for so many people, what's the main thing people are using the AI art for?
Right now, they're using it for like children's stories and stuff in books.
Okay, yeah, but like in the more general like pop cultural sense, like
I don't know, like marketing and comics and stuff.
The biggest thing you'll see...
Swinging a
You're wrong! The biggest thing you'll see if you get on any social media platform is that everybody is dumping their photos into the AI to make avatars of themselves.
Okay, I got you. That's really weird. I don't know why you would do that.
But it's huge. It's huge.
Now, to be fair, there was a bunch of people that also did those really stupid, like, colorful profile pictures of themselves, and they're always holding glasses like this.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think those are translators.
But like, it's interesting to me how many people will flock to any kind of app or AI thing that can make them look different or look better, create a avatar of who they wish they could be.
Yeah, facade.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point. See, I haven't seen that, but that's a great point. You're right.
Yeah, they love to see themselves as something more than they are, which, I mean, that's why people play D&D. That's why people play video games and create, your avatars on those games to try to make something that's a version of you that's better than you actually are.
Instead of actually improving yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Instead of working on you, let me see an idealized version of myself that didn't require work.
Well, that's the whole thing. If we wanted to bring religion into it, I mean, that's...
Why wouldn't we?
I was discussing that the other day. Is that the idea of Satan is a figure that doesn't want to change. Mm-hmm. Doesn't if it wanted to become God, which it did, it would require death and sacrifice. But it wants the crown and the glory without sacrifice, without change. Wants to be glorified. Oh, that's what I was talking about. That. With like how Mary Sue's are portrayed in modern media, like Captain Marvel, it's always like a female character that doesn't have to change; it just has to remember how great it was.
Well, and to be meddlesome, I mean, we all know people who want everything to be given to them, but they don't want to work to better themselves to be desirable to a company that would hire them or to a person that would want to be in a relationship with them. They're like, though they should just want me like I am. But what if
What if what you are sucks?
Yeah, what if you are objectively awful and it could be made better by trying?
Yeah, slightest change.
Yeah,
Trying. Even just trying is an indicator of like growth.
Well, that's why, like, I don't know, a lot of people have a lot of mixed opinions about him. I have mixed opinions about him, but like Jordan Peterson, one thing I do like that he said is like that idea of like, if you want to change your life, start by cleaning your room.
Yeah.
Like
personal adoption of personal responsibility.
Yeah, like it's regardless of the rest of what he says or what you think about him. Like that's a good idea. It's like that is a manageable change.
Yeah.
That you could do if you want to.
Well, it's
yourself.
also non-refutable from any like argument you bring against it, because the argument will be like, well, what about systemic problems? It's like, well, how does improving yourself make that any worse?
Yeah,
it can only, even if there's a systemic change that's needed, changing yourself and bettering yourself will only make that better.
Well, how would you be? Why would you expect anybody to change a system?
Yeah.
When they won't even change their own daily routine. If there's no discipline on a personal scale, how's there going to be discipline on a global or societal scale?
Well, if you can't sustain something, why would anyone believe that you can rebuild something?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can't keep something going that already works, why would I trust you to tear something down and rebuild
exactly.
it? Exactly. If you can't keep your car running, I'm not going to trust you to like break it down, burn it, and then rebuild it.
Well, it's like I heard somebody the other day that defined diligence as doing a small thing for a long time until something big happens. And that's it's a very simple definition, but like that idea of like being faithful in a small thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You know, until eventually you show, I can be faithful in bigger things.
Well, the idea of work and growth and success has changed over the years. Like, we don't do 10, 15-year apprenticeships anymore. You do 4 years of college and you're told you know what you know. You go out and do it.
Now you're worth 50, 60, 70,000 a year because of that piece of paper.
Or especially creatives. I mean, people don't think that you need to go sift for gold anymore. And this gets on my nerves. We've had our own discussions with this, and people think, especially with art, you got to ride the line between art and business, of course, if you want to keep making art and not like kill yourself. But what I get frustrated at is this idea of people like, well, you gotta just make stuff until you find out what's marketable, and it's like, well, what people want. And it's like, well, that's not art, that's a product.
Yeah.
But it's like, what you're not doing is you're not creating something you love and then working super hard to get people to find it.
Yeah,
you're trying to find
the people that love the same thing you like and and expose them to it.
Yeah. If you are some kind of idea like, oh, I'll throw out a million ideas until somebody likes one. It's like, well, it seems like you don't really care about those ideas.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different argument. But I guess what I would say with that is, I just see so many people, especially on Twitter, especially comic book artists, indie comic book guys, that just it just seems so fake. They're just all beaten down about marketing. It's like, man, I don't know what to tell you except like, if you have something really cool, if I see it, I'll buy it. If I don't think it's cool, I'm not going to buy it. And no matter what you say about it or try to get, if it's not cool,
I don't expect anybody to respond to mine any differently. Like, if it's not good,
if you don't think it's cool, then
I don't expect you to buy something that you don't want.
Yeah, I don't want you to
buy it just because you feel bad for me.
Yeah.
Or because you think that, like, if you don't buy it for some reason,
we're not friends.
We're not. Yeah, there's something wrong.
Oh, I don't want this greater. I talked about this with Chris's Vengeance.
Chris's Vengeance.
and Elon Mudd about it, and I like both of their perspectives, but it's like, you don't want people to buy your stuff to be part of a community.
No.
You want people to enjoy it because of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I want you to enjoy it, and because you like the story, you like the art, you're invested in where it's headed, and you want to be a part of that. I don't need you to be my family.
No,
I got a family.
I don't need you to be my friend.
No, I got one of those.
We could, yeah, right. we come from the music background, and that whole, man, that's such a vicious scene where it's always like you've got to stand here for 6 hours, listen to every band, or you're not part of the scene. You're not.
I don't care about being part of the scene. Everything I cared about, I just put on that stage.
And people, they're always like, well, if you don't stay for other bands, they won't come to your show. I don't care. I want people who like the music to come to the show, not a bunch of people that think they owe me something.
Now, if you hop up there and your first song kicks my butt in, I'm going to stick around because it's worth listening to.
But if it's not,
if it's some garbage, no, I'm not sticking around.
It just bothers me that collectivist idea, which is it's in itself a hyper reality going with this, is so prevalent in artistic circles.
Yeah,
probably more prevalent than people know.
That's why a scene, the community, scene, a community, all that stuff. That's why, because it's so demonstrably fake.
Yeah,
and it's so finicky and so like quick to turn and quick to bite and quick, because it's not real.
Yep.
And the second anybody dares to stand up and say, "Look, there's
a problem.
Yeah, this is not right." Oh, then everybody piles on, and the people who really survive and stand out are the ones who say, "We don't care."
Yeah. Well, it becomes cult like.
Yeah, it does. You get all the gatekeepers and all the whiners and and then when it fails, they say, "Well, it's because somebody was a bigot, or it's because somebody was racist,
or somebody was mean,
or somebody was mean." Well, no, maybe you just weren't good.
Well, like I said, I even had Chris on to talk about it. He on Facebook, or not, he on Twitter. Somebody asked, "What are your complaints about comics?" And he said mainstream or indie, and they said indie, and he said, "Well, there's a lack of originality." And of course, people took it, ran dogpiling to hell and gone. But it's like, look, and one of the arguments against him was like, "You're insulting indie comics, but you're in indie comics. What hypocrisy!" It's like, no, man, you can be part of something and think it needs to be better.
Yeah,
you can be like, and the way you do that is you try to make it better, and you try to actually do something that is better.
Well, and that's the thing is like you make the mistake. It's the same mistake that people have when they're like, "Well, I'm supposed to be your boss and your friend."
Yeah.
All right. Like there's a confusion of roles.
Yeah.
When you say that, "Oh, you're in indie comics." I'm an independent comic creator, so yes, I'm in indie comics, but I'm also not. This is not. They're not. That's not my family on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
That's not my community. Those are not my people. I'm not their people.
Yeah, now there may be some that are friends.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and I love the people we have on.
Yeah, but that doesn't get in the way of what I'm creating.
No.
And it doesn't have any impact on what I'm creating. Like, if they create something that I think's cool, I'm going to share it. And I'm going to buy it. But
if they're your friends, you wouldn't lie to them.
Yeah, exactly. But that idea that, you're in indie comics, it's not a community. It's
not a
business.
It's not a nation state. It's just a state of being. It just means you're not part of DC or Marvel.
Yeah.
Because Image is still indie comics.
Yeah, that's debatable.
He claims that title so he could have the longest running indie comic.
Yeah, I guess so.
But I mean, I can't bring anything against Todd McFarlane except that he's a bad writer. Like everything else, that dude knows what he's doing.
He's a good businessman.
If he claims indie, like, you know what, maybe Todd deserves it because he went through DC and Marvel. Like he hell, he gets to say I'm not them.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Even though I make all their toys.
No, that's fine. But it's just that idea of like, why would you want to turn it into another clique, another set of hoops to jump through,
another high school?
I mean, that's not punk.
It's not, and that's the biggest thing, man. I think the punk ethic is what's lost in a lot of this because like. To connect it all with this, punk was always about authenticity and real.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about pushing it back against like simulation and inauthenticity.
And that's what rock and roll is all about, man.
It's supposed to be.
That's what it started as.
Now it's Imagine Dragons.
And then it becomes corporatized.
Yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, and that's what happens though is when it becomes a product strictly as a product. Instead of art that is sold.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that's what Metaverse is. Metaverse is the ultimate product is to say we're going to resell you the world. This thing that you get for free, we're going to charge you for it.
This water that makes up 75% of your planet, we're going to put it in a bottle and sell it to you.
Tank Girl
from Pepsi.
Pepsi. That's my Tank Girl. Remember that?
Yeah.
He had that bottle. With the needle, he would jab in people, and it would extract only the water somehow, and he would drink it. I don't even think she cared about that he was the movie. I don't think she even cared that he was like an evil guy. I think that she was just like, "Hey, you attacked my kangaroo friends or whatever."
I did love that movie.
I
It's
love
a
that, yeah.
weird movie.
It's one
but
of
I
my
loved
favorite
it.
Sunday afternoon pre-nap movies.
Yeah, that's a good movie. It was so wacky.
Yeah. You couldn't. I don't know. I think not that you couldn't get away with it, like because of political correctness. Just like no one would be like, "I'm not investing in that."
Yeah, that's the thing is nobody would pay for that movie now.
But is to keep the levity going. You talk about AI art. Have you seen the one that people were like, "This it's all over"? I'll show you.
This is probably the moment in history where we
For those who can't see it, it's AI generated bimbos, and it's really creepy because it's.
I bet if you get too close to some of those, you're gonna see some of those weird eyes and multiple fingers and like.
You know what's worse is like there's gonna be all kinds of illegal art created with that.
Oh, dude,
that's what's gonna happen.
There's gonna be so much. Let's not even chase that.
I can't use that term on YouTube without it getting like kicked off. But yeah, that's what's gonna happen. Then they're gonna have to like go through the prompts and like put in keywords.
But see that, and that's where all of the deep fake stuff gets.
That was the other thing,
weird and scary and. You don't ever know like what you're really seeing and listening to and hearing. It's so
what happens when a totalitarian government shows a video of you doing something you didn't do?
Exactly.
It's like, well, that's not me. What? This is it. This is the evidence.
Exactly. It's terrifying.
This is stuff like deepfake videos and stuff is something that would have been used to incriminate a good guy at the beginning of a late '90s political thriller.
Mm-hmm.
That's what would have been like used in that. But yeah, I mean, I gotta tell you, man, there's very few times in my life where I've looked at the future this dismally, and just didn't know what was gonna have to do with it. Because like with deepfake stuff, I mean, all of history can be retconned. Every record can be changed, which is literally 1984 to keep not to use that term, but that was literally.
But we are in a time period where a dystopia is. More believable than possible. Global dystopia is more believable, and that's Apollyon 20XX. That is what that world is.
Yeah.
By the time our story starts, it is a true global dystopia.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much, man. It just takes people consistently believing lies, and then when you got one of these in your pocket,
mm-hmm.
the lies are always coming through, and it's not just like news. It's everything you see and hear. It's not even that it's a lie. It's just it's not truth.
Everything's suspect. Everything, and you live with the paranoia of that, and then you also have the people that just completely buy into the simulation that they're being fed by whichever party.
Out of either stupidity or lethargy.
It's easier. Yeah, it's just easier.
It's easier.
Yeah, it's just easier. It's apathy. It's I don't want to try, so I'm just going to let somebody feed me. And I'll just accept that as reality. Yeah. I'll subscribe to this reality and vehemently oppose anything that stands against it. If they tell me, if this reality tells me that you're bad, well, I'm just going to believe you're bad.
Yeah, it's easier.
It's so much easier.
Well, the idea becomes truth is what I choose.
Well, see, and that's how, people are like, well, how did the Nazis become a real thing? Well, it's because they heard enough charismatic people say, hey, these Jews are not humans.
Yeah, it's X people's fault.
Yeah, it's their fault. They're not even human. They're not really people.
Mm-hmm.
And
little by little.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Solzhenitsyn described the Soviet Union as. It's basically like a country just slowly accepted lies.
Yeah.
Over and over.
But look how many people, both on the right and on the left, in the past 5 years have made so many statements. Like, they'll point blank make statements saying that the other side deserves to die.
Yeah.
Like, and we're talking like politicians will make these kinds of statements.
Yeah, that's what's been really weird.
It's not even just random people that there's somebody's talking to on the street. You've got actual politicians that will say things like that. You've got, like, it's terrifying to me that there's a large, probably not a large, but there's at least a portion of the population that believes that if you think something different than me, you don't deserve to live. And
well, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take a large percentage to completely radicalize and change an entire nation.
No, it doesn't.
Or a world.
It doesn't.
But but if you go outside, things haven't changed except for like gas prices and eggs. Like as far as reality, things
That's the
changed.
thing is the reality that we live in versus the simulation that they put on that they want us to believe we live in. All you have to do is take the headset off and realize that's not actually how most people treat each other.
Well, the worst part is when it gets to, because people use the Matrix a lot, and the scariest part about the Matrix isn't that you're plugged in, it's that when you get out, the machines are still there.
Yeah.
And that is what is totalizing government force is. It's you can't leave the simulation.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, you're flushed. If you're flushed, then you're pursued by political force, and there won't be any mountain raves to go to. But I mean, it doesn't take much, man. We saw it past 2 years. Suddenly, they can just cut off your bank account.
Well, did you see where they were talking about? I don't know if it's true or not. Or did you see where they were talking about wanting to put like kill switches in people's cars?
Yep.
And they
that's why they're moving towards like electric vehicles and technological vehicles instead of like analog and diesel instead, or not diesel but gasoline. Just cut it off. You can't start it up. That's your carbon footprint. If you really want to go down a deep hole, people can look up ESG scores and personal carbon footprint scores and that kind of stuff. But I mean, you can't avoid it anymore. I mean, it's become more and more of a reality, and you can push against it. But I'm not here to like tell people to like radicalize and do stuff because that's terrible. But like,
but see, here's the thing: is even if you do want to radicalize and you do want to fight back, they got more guns than you do.
Yeah,
they've got drones. They got like there is no.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing.
You can't kill that beast.
I think
how do you cut that head off?
What gives me hope with that kind of, we have to talk about real world stuff, is information is still free to express. I mean, there's certain things you can't say, but I mean, there are people, I think, within power that could be in power that can watch something or listen to some kind of reason and at least slow something down or stop it. Because I gotta tell you, I don't think people pushing these kind of massive changes are very smart. I don't think that they're very competent. I think that they just have a lot of power behind them, and that's what gives me hope.
Yeah, but they will ultimately fail.
Well, this is what's weird with like deepfake stuff and like AI is like people are like, well, it's going to put artists out of jobs. Like, no, it has the potential to put everybody out of every kind of work if it keeps going.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we've seen how. I mean, this is an age-old conversation about technology.
Yeah.
But I mean, automation has been putting people out of jobs for decades.
Yep.
That's not new.
Yep. I mean, but I guess that's what's so weird that makes me so frustrated is people who put so much faith in AI. It's like, man, that thing's gonna suck. Like, it will be able to do a few things really well, repetitive things. It can't accept change. It doesn't know how to adapt. And that's what we always hear, like, oh, it can adapt. Like, no, it can't. Like, we have yet, there's nothing, it's not conscious. It never will be
conscious. And if it does become conscious, then we've got a whole series of movies to explain why that's a bad idea.
Well, it can't. It literally, there's no way it can become conscious because we don't even know what consciousness is. And I'm supposed to believe that a scientist that can't tell me what consciousness is can create consciousness. Because the only argument would be, well, if we don't know what it is, why can't we make it? And that's the worst argument to ever make ever. Like, if I don't know what Antarctica is, I can make it. It's just...
I want to know what love is. So I can make it.
You said like Hank.
I want to know what love is.
Peggy, I want to know what love is.
Just not with you, Peggy.
With Boomhauer.
With propane.
And propane accessories. But that was this is what like cringe edgelords would have pointed out about Mysterio is like, you know, you just believe what they put on the news, man. You know what I mean? That's reality. But I mean, I get what Mysterio was going
science,
for.
Dan.
Yeah, right. Trust the science. The science is settled. Mysterio Far From Home, that was the only good theme I liked about that movie, was that people will believe whatever is put in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that movie, like a lot of modern movies, has great themes but terrible execution. But that's the whole thing with all of this kind of stuff, man. It just, because I can understand corporate stuff, but when it seeps into art, like art's like the lifeblood of a civilization. And whenever we see, what's going to happen is you're going to see art being replaced with AI art.
Oh yeah, well I mean it's already happening.
And you're going to see entertainers replaced with deep fakes. And it's like what that says is that that means like the heroes and gods of your culture are these things that a machine makes, and that's terrifying.
Yeah,
I'm trying to speak from a secular point of view.
well, and we've seen it's kind of cool, but that's one of the main themes from back in the 90s, or I guess it was the 90s, that anime Macross Plus
Yeah,
was the idea that they had an AI performer who was the most popular musician in the world, but it needed a human for a little while to tether itself to, but it eventually woke up and became its own thing, and it was dangerous.
Yeah.
It's a thing that's closer to reality than we've ever seen before. But I agree with you. I don't think you're ever going to see a self-aware AI.
Well, there's two schools of thought with that. I'm not sure which one I believe, but let's go down it. I don't think anything. There's no way something that's unconscious and material can develop a consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it was developed and made by human hands. There's nothing that's impossible from every single standpoint of every school of thought ever. There's no way. I don't know. I can't even explain how stupid that is.
I don't accept that as a reality.
Yeah, there's no way. Especially, computers are literally ones and zeros, and there's going to be some quantum physicist guy that's going to push back on that. It's like, no, man, like, it just is. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's literally like, the guys that will tell you it can be more are the ones that'll tell you human beings are just flesh and blood. And the whole point of a human being is that it is a spiritual being.
Yeah.
Computers can't be. AI can't be. The other school of thought, which is the complete opposite, is going to a biblical point of view. It was of Jewish tradition and old world tradition that the reason idols were so important was they believed spirits attached themselves to it. You know what I mean? Like that's why it was important to tear them down, and that's why they never died. That was, at least that's what I've studied recently, is like the idea that spirits they can't be killed, so they kind of just went around until they found something else to attach themselves to.
So, like, is that the idea that kind of like with Ronin, where if what does inhabit an AI would have to be
something spiritual? Well, I was gonna go with what is it? Not Ronin, but the Ransom trilogy.
Oh yeah.
Not Atlas. What's the last one? That Hideous Strength.
Yeah.
Where the science, we'll do like a book club on that one. But basically, the main antagonists are scientists who are practitioners of scientism, who resurrect a head, like a severed head, and it's talking to them, and they think they've done it, but it's actually a demon that has possessed it.
That's an interesting thought.
Well, that's the only other thing I could think that could give something consciousness. If we wanted to go the complete opposite,
or they've done so much, in recent times with brain mapping and things like that. If there was some way to transition a consciousness from a human brain into a simulated thing, but that still would be a human.
We don't know what consciousness is.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
And I agree. So, that's just it is an interesting thought, though.
But see, that one, I hate to say, I think that one is more likely. I think a spiritual force, or if you have to say it, a multi-dimensional force, if you had to go down that route, latching itself onto an advanced machine to give basically just giving a body to its own consciousness would be more likely.
Mm. And that's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's really scary. That's Al Gore. He's super serial.
Man, bear, pig, board. Well, see that, and somebody can take and run with that, because we left the spiritual stuff kind of out of our books, but if someone wanted to take that and run with that idea of a demonic figure that latches itself onto a technological like force, that'd be kind of cool, because I'm pretty sure that's been in some sci-fi before.
Oh yeah, that's a cool idea.
Yeah. That's not what Event Horizon was, but it was. Then they used technology to open a gate to hell. Wasn't that it?
Yeah, and then it inhabited the ship.
Yeah. but what I'm saying is that would be like an ultimate simulacra. It would be this idea of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's not. And I think that's where we're headed, man. I think we're headed towards this idea of accepting that humans are nothing. And since humans are nothing special, then anything can be like a human, anything can be like a god, and anything can be... I think that's where we're going. On a large scale, is that truth doesn't matter.
And neither do you.
Yeah, neither do you.
Well, and, that's where... And I'm not wanting to get into like a debate about evolution or creationism or anything like that, but that's one of the sides to, if you are accepting of the... the theory of evolution and like the Big Bang and all that stuff is if life is the result of a cosmic accident, then you're not important.
Nothing matters. There's no morality.
There's no purpose. There's no morality beyond what is an accident of nature.
Why wouldn't might make right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, that materialist subjectivist view, which those are two different things. We'll go with a materialist view. It's so terrifying, and you see it in people so much. It's always about standard of living. Like, the most important thing is standard of living to people. The most important thing is money. Even like socialists don't say that, but they believe it because they think all things that need to be fixed are material things.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you believe that, then there's no moral code. Like, what's the moral code? Is that you're comfortable?
Yeah, that's the highest goal.
Why can't you kill everyone who doesn't believe in what you believe? Without a moral framework, which has to come from a grander divine being. Why can't you just do whatever you want? I forget who said it. I think it was Dostoevsky said that. Like, I could be wrong, so don't quote me. It was like, without God, everything is permittable.
Well, I mean, that's the idea. Is like, if you're just an animal, if you're just meat and oxygen and water, like if you're just the sum of your parts, and you were the product of evolution, like you're just a cosmic accident. Why would you think that one cosmic accident is worth more than another cosmic accident, or less, or...
Well, that's where the far extremes are going. That's where the far left and far right are going politically, is the idea of the abolishment of human rights. Because, why would it matter? Like, where do they come from? Because they only get in the way of what we want, of what they want. Well, if you don't believe, or if you don't at least pretend to believe, like many of our founding fathers, if you don't at least acknowledge that, let's at least pretend and live by this rule in law written down, that humans are given a divine right by a creator that can't be taken away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you don't believe that, you can take them away.
Exactly.
But that's the thing. That's the ultimate simulation idea, though. Is that human, like, to me at least, I'm not trying to get over emotional, but the ultimate simulation would be to convince people that they're nothing more than meat and bones, because then you can do anything to it.
Well, and that's where, along with that, and this is a different kind of topic that we probably don't want to get into, but at some point that's where the identity breaks down.
Yeah. Well, that's the point of it, too, is to break down the identity of the person.
Yeah, to where you're just the state.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's fascism. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything within the state, nothing outside of it. The complete annihilation of the individual. And for anybody who's like not sure of it, or not sure, but who's interested in it, you can check out a book called The Anti-Humans, which is about a case. I shouldn't say case study, but it's about a study that I think it was Romanian. Don't quote me. Romanian Soviets did on like Catholic and Orthodox students.
That's such a disturbing.
Yeah, and they basically they put them through literal hell for months. Like it's worse than 120 days of Sodom.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's unbelievably horrific. But they did it to try to prove that that the human being could be broken down, destroyed, and their soul wasn't non-existent. It turns out they were wrong. Like despite everything, the Soviets realized like something is in here that defines them as human that we can't break. And so that's encouraging.
By way of discouragement.
Yeah, by way of discouragement. It's so nice of them to try that.
Thank you, Soviets.
Thanks for proving that. but that's the goal of everything.
Soviet Russia, we crush everything to prove you have a soul.
Going with this, I mean, this is what if you are like a Christian or any kind of religion, I mean, it's basically the Old Testament. That's what this is continuously talking about, like with Daniel not bowing to Nebuchadnezzar's statue for saying that's a simulation.
Yeah,
that's not real.
That's not. Well, I mean, it's the same thing. Paul comes in, he's like, you guys have all these statues. Yep. He's even got one to the God that you don't even know a name of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it, you know, it is interesting. You know, you bring up other religions, and you know, you and I are Christian, but like, even for the Muslim,
yep,
they believe we are a chosen people,
and that Allah is one, and Allah is above all.
Right.
Like there's a separate. There's
right.
Yeah.
And you know, and even you know, if you're Buddhist or you know Shinto or any of these other like Eastern religions, there's still an intrinsic value in the soul.
Yeah, transcendental.
Yeah, there's
properties.
A transcendental, eternal concept of who you are, and as a living being, whether that means that you are an ancestor reborn or whatever that you believe that to spark of life to be.
Yeah.
You know, you can't accept the simulation over that if you genuinely believe that people have intrinsic value and people are more than just flesh and blood.
Yep.
But if you believe that all you are is a animated matter
mm-hmm.
that will cease to be animated and it's just oblivion after that, why would you care what you do? Why would you care what's right and wrong?
Well, why wouldn't you usher in oblivion quicker?
Yeah. It's just such a... Or why not just get lost
yep.
in something else? Why not just dive as far into a fake reality as I can if I don't believe that my own reality has any more purpose than that?
Well, and Lewis wrote about, was in the Abolition of Man, that even just starting from the idea of beauty as being subjective would lead to things worse than this. And he was absolutely correct. He destroyed postmodernism before it even existed. Because he saw what the current, I forgot what that current school of thought, at his time was called. I really don't remember. It wasn't scientism. It was something like that. But he knew a lot of like even like secret society kind of stuff, like a lot of Fabian kind of stuff. Like he saw that kind of creeping in. He knew what, especially socialism and materialism and subjectivity, what it would go. Yeah, he knew it before it even creeped in too far. But that's what it ultimately does. It just destroys the benevolence of man and the divinity of man. And we talk about this a lot, I know, but like the idea of art is political. That's just part of it. It's to reduce people into a collective political state so that you can use political force against them, which means you just see them basically as animals.
Well, and I don't want to get
just do it.
All the garbage, but you know they pushed. Regardless of what you think about COVID or any of that stuff, vaccines, any of that stuff.
We're already demonetized.
Why do you think it was so important to the powers that be to get everybody locked in a house, and if you came out, cover your face?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you can say, oh, it's because of the journey, and that's very debatable at this point. But, like, it literally made everybody faceless.
Mm-hmm. Interchangeable.
Yeah, it made everybody faceless and interchangeable. And they broke down society. And it has had a very negative effect on people's mental health and on our ability to interact with one another. And it's like that was a destruction of individuals. And the whole thing of like if you did or didn't have the vaccine, that puts you in a completely different bracket of humanity.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me that's not how they treated it. Regardless of what you feel about it, you cannot tell me that you weren't treated as a different part of society.
A tiered system.
Yeah.
But I mean, look what else it did. It was nothing could be questioned about it, to the point that YouTube would literally like censor you.
Yeah.
And it's not to even get into that, but it's like, do you think it's going to stop with that?
Yeah. Do you think that's where
it wasn't about COVID?
It was an experiment.
Yeah,
it was about power.
It wouldn't have mattered what it was.
Yeah, never make no mistake. Everything that the ruling bodies do is about power.
Yep.
And it's about their own wealth and power.
Yep.
And about robbing you of yours.
And I don't go too far into COVID. I lost my father-in-law to COVID. Like,
I almost died.
Yeah, and it messes with your brain. It really does. Like, when you have it, or at least the first time I had it, it was like messing with it was wicked. But I mean, that's what happens when something that's cooked up and and messed with. But it's not to harp on that. It's just that there will. I mean, I don't know how to go into it too much. Like, we are being moved. I forgot who said this to quote. It doesn't matter, but we're being moved from an analog world to a digital one.
Yeah.
To a simulated one.
Yeah.
To where this will get torn down in a way and replaced with maybe not the metaverse, but something like it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's exactly this, but you have to act as if it's different, which is what 1984 and Brave New World were all about. Is like it doesn't matter as long as in your heart you love Big Brother.
Mm-hmm.
What did Rage say? They don't gotta burn the books; they just remove them.
Yeah.
Rage with the machine.
They also said that they wouldn't do what you tell them, Dan.
Yeah, right. And now they totally do what you tell them. I'm not trying to be scatterbrained here, but this is all connected. Especially like this idea, of AI, especially the pornographic part of it. All of that, anything that creates a hyper reality of something is toxic. It's destructive to you, especially if you can't already deal with the material and the analog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It even says something like, I don't want to go into it, but what's that book? Ready Player One.
I kept kind of circling around whether I wanted to bring that book of movie up. Or
you should
not.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's good. Well, I mean, it's just it's a great story. Like, I love the book, but it's that idea of falling so deeply into the reality that this guy created in the Oasis is literally just an existence completely run by your nostalgia.
Yeah. Someone else's nostalgia.
Yeah, it's someone else's nostalgia. Yeah, because all these younger people are becoming obsessed with things from the 70s and 80s because that's what the creator, the god of Oasis, that was his nostalgic things that he loved.
And most of it is cynically to win a prize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To find the Easter egg, to be the first one so that you can own it.
A lot of that book is deeper than I think the author, which is a good thing. But I mean, that's the deepest part, because I tell you, I don't think he was a great author.
Nah, because the next book he wrote was terrible.
Andromeda was awful. Oh, it was so bad. And his character,
Armada, I think it was Armada. Yeah.
His books are not great. He's not a great writer.
I did like Ready Player One a lot.
Yeah.
I think he spent a lot more time on that one probably. The movie was better than the book to me though.
Yeah, the movie was better. But
Spielberg.
It's a hero who's rewarded for his nerddom.
Yeah.
And for becoming the hero of that world. And it's pretty depressing.
It is.
Yeah, I know he tries to comment on bettering himself in the real world, but that's not what wins.
Yeah, that's the thing, is at the end of that story, when he has the power over the Oasis is in his hands, what he should have done is destroyed it.
Well, the problem with that book is the hero doesn't, and I'll shout out RJ at the Fourth Age, and I'll tag him in this. That's the guy that I tried to politely refute on that one topic with Chainsaw Man. But he's an amazing philosopher as basically of comic books and heroes. But he would be completely right in this, and then maybe he did a video. Anyway, I don't know. But if I had to do an analysis like him, the hero of that story could have been anybody in the wrong way, because he doesn't succeed based on his virtue.
Yeah.
Now you could say it's because he had friends to help, but it's like, no, the bad guys were literally going to win too. It wasn't his virtue or personal passion that did it. It was that he knew as much crap as the creator did. Mm-hmm. That's how he won.
Yeah.
Which he did it by being part of the simulation.
Yeah.
Going so far into
being
it.
deeper into it than anyone else was.
Yeah, he didn't transcend it.
No.
Yeah.
And given the opportunity to,
yeah,
he doesn't.
No. Yeah, it's not a hero story. I don't know. It's a really weird. I don't know. He has some redeeming qualities.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's certainly meant to be heroic, and it's more that idea of like, well, he beats the corporation. Yeah, but then you become the corporation.
Yeah, and he beat him just by. It was just by being a nerd, which is. It wasn't like you conquer the dragon without becoming the dragon, or you beat the villain without becoming the villain. It's like, no, you had to be as most like them, more than like them.
Well, and you also saw that like so many of the people that worked for the corporation were just as nerdy as he was.
Yeah,
he had studied a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's a weird. We could do a whole big breakdown of it, which might be kind of fun. He wasn't really a hero.
Yeah, that's fair.
He was just the biggest nerd in the room. but that's the whole thing too. Is going back to modern.
I'm probably the biggest nerd in this room.
Well, nerddom.
You're the tallest one.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I'm taller. Nerddom.
But I'm wearing the Gundam.
I'm not going to show what I'm wearing. I don't want to dox myself that easily. Nerddom. It's weird. The rise of the nerd as a hero in our society is really weird. The guy who's best at, like, it's not virtuous. It's just knowledge. That's not a great thing.
I mean, it starts with Peter Parker.
Does it?
I think so.
But he still had to learn with great power comes great responsibility. At least. Were you just talking personality wise?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could
the
see
elevation of the nerd.
Yeah, elevation of the nerd.
Clark Kent.
I don't know. He was a farm boy
until he got like his alter ego is the nerdy loser at the Daily Planet.
That's true. Maybe
Peter Parker is a better example of it
because he's actually a nerd. He gets
bullied by everybody.
He didn't grow up on a farm.
He lives with his raggedy old aunt.
But you got rid of the healthy specimen, like we've demonized like the high school bully, like the guy that plays football, like the jock. But it's like most of the jocks I knew were like really smart too. like I think I knew like 2 jocks that were really dumb, and most of them had a much healthier way of life than most of the nerds, because most
they
of
were
the nerds
blissfully ignorant.
Yeah, well, they were just like, they were well adjusted. Like a lot of the nerds were like guys who masturbated to hentai and were just angry all the time. You know what I mean?
The Unabomber.
Yeah, like yeah, we value knowledge over virtue, and that just, I mean, you see it. That's Iron Man's whole arc. He has to become a hero, and he finally does at the end of Endgame. Finally does. Whereas, Steve Rogers was already that, and that's why he was the better hero for the entire franchise. But I don't know, I'm not trying to ramble, but we constructed that need as a society. We've constructed the simulation for the nerd to succeed, because it doesn't succeed in nature. Yeah. You have to be well-rounded in nature. You have to be able to hunt. You have to be able to gather, and you have to be smart. So, what is it from Godfather? I'm smart. I can do stuff. was that Fredo?
Yeah.
I'm smart. I can do stuff. I can do stuff. But I don't know.
Good talk, man.
Yeah, it's a big topic, but pick up our book Apollyon 20XX when it comes out a few months. We go into this and more, and we'll be providing chapter 1 for everybody to read, because we're really tired of seeing Kickstarters and Indiegogos where people just post like blank art.
Yeah.
Like
one picture.
Yeah, you need to make sure.
No text.
You need to make sure that what you're buying is good, like written and artistically. But we'll catch you next time. You want to say like and subscribe? You want to be that guy? I had to say it last time.
Like and subscribe. Click the subscribe button. It helps us get more attention, I guess.
Yeah. Peace.
Which we all want.
Clearly.